Finance, annual report on the petroleum funds for the 2018 fiscal year. Item listed for Honorable Minister for Finance.
Mr. Speaker, obviously, the Finance Minister is in the premises. Mr. Speaker, and I know the entire leadership of this House is aware of that fact. And the majority leader himself, together with the Vice President, would be with the Finance Minister in presenting the annual report of the Petroleum Fund, the annual fiscal policy of government for the year ending 31st December 2019. Mr. Speaker. But as we have the one of our own, Mr. Speaker, we have one of our own. The Honorable Minister, Deputy Minister for Finance, is in the House as well, and she has worked together with the Minister for Finance, and the Minister of Finance, Mr. Speaker, is in the House. The Finance Minister is in the House, the Vice President is in the House, and the Majority Leader is in the House, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, item listed for Honorable Minister for Finance.
Annual report on the petroleum funds for the 2018 fiscal year.
The paper is duly presented and is referred to the Finance Committee for consideration and due report. Item listed 5. Motion. Honorable Minister for Finance.
The Right Honorable Speaker, honorable members of Parliament, today, the 15th day of November 2018, on the authority of the President of the Republic of Ghana, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo Addo, I beg to move this August House approves the financial policy of the government of the Republic of Ghana for the year ending 31st December 2019. Mr. Speaker, on the authority of His Excellency, the President, and in keeping with the requirement under Article 179 of the 1992 Constitution of the Republic of Ghana, may I respectfully present the budget statement and economic policies of government for 2019 to this Honorable House. Mr. Speaker, this statement is an abridged version of the 2019 budget statement. I would like to request the Hansard Department to capture the entire budget statement and economic policy. I also submit before this August House the 2018 annual report on the petroleum funds in accordance with Section 48 of the Petroleum Revenue Management Act 2011, Act 815, as amended. Mr. Speaker, the theme for this year's budget is a stronger economy for jobs and prosperity. The budget represents the third of 4 annual budget statements of the government. It therefore offers us an opportunity to take a midterm review of the performance of the government in managing the economy and how we intend to accelerate the program of growing the economy, modernizing agriculture and industrializing our society, protecting the vulnerable and creating jobs and prosperity for the Ghanaian people over the next financial year. Mr. Speaker, I do not take lightly the significance of this moment, an opportunity we are granted annually to determine how the precious assets of Ghana, our people, our land, our natural resources, and our treasury should be stewarded for national growth and human development. Mr. Speaker, who are we that we should be given this sacred responsibility and opportunity to steward this country? Despite the challenges, we approach this process with genuine humility and gratitude to a great God. We recognize that while current resources are insufficient to meet every need and every demand of every Ghanaian, there are no limitations on our collective potential as a people, our will and our hope that the sacrifices we make and the seeds we sow today will achieve sustainable results, putting Ghana on an irreversible path of enviable empowerment. Mr. Speaker, I stood here in March 2017 and asked that our country's poultry, 2 fish and 5 loaves be multiplied. And indeed, as a young boy gave all he had to the multitude, so have we, and the Lord has indeed blessed our nation. With all the humility I can muster, Mr. Speaker, permit me to say that I am proud to say that the Akufo Addo government is delivering on this 4-year resounding honor that the people of Ghana has given us. This is evident in the impressive strides the nation has made in the past 22 months. Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the President, I wish to thank you all, the citizens of this country, for your patience, perseverance, sacrifices, activism, and partnership that you have extended to this government. So far-reaching and non-partisan at times as these national sacrifices been, that even now, some members of the minority in Parliament have decided to lead the campaign for a cleaner environment by dumping their gasoline Toyota Land Cruisers to ride bicycles to work. For example, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, a former deputy minister for power, during the unforgiving Dumso era under President John Dramani Mahama was seen only 2 evenings ago riding his bicycle to a luxury furniture shop on the Spinters Road. Yes, Mr. Speaker, we have in the last 2 budget years taken some tough decisions to get the country out of some very rough seas. We are not proud of the fact that there's still hardship in the country, but we are comforted by the fact that we have managed to ease the impact of the hardships that the Ghanaian people have been resigned to prior to December 7, 2016. We are not there yet. We still have a long way to go in fulfilling the manifest destiny of this blessed land. Indeed, we are being repaid for the years the locusts have eaten. So, Mr. Speaker, what is, however, clear is that the nation is moving forward under this government and moving forward in the right direction. We are now, Mr. Speaker, on course to exit the inherited IMF program by the end of this year. It has been a collective effort by all of us, government, for exercising the kind of macroeconomic competence and discipline that was evidently lacking in the past, and the people for their patience, understanding, and keeping faith with their government. The program may have had its critics because of the constraints it imposed, but it was a necessary pill because by 2014, Mr. Speaker, the government then had lost the fiscal discipline and had very little choice but to seek the bailout. We are grateful to the IMF and are determined to maintain a combination of eternal economic discipline and vibrancy, like Germany, that would ensure that we will not have to be rescued in that manner in the future. And as our president said, never again. Mr. Speaker, the philosophy of this government has not been to throw our hands in the air and offer excuses. The president, of course, set a standard in his first State of the Nation address. He said, and I quote, "I was not elected by the overwhelming majority of the Ghanaian people to complain. I was elected to get things done. I was elected to fix what is broken, and my government and I are determined to do just that." Mr. Speaker, it is important to remember what it was in order to appreciate the work that has been done to fix the mess. So, Mr. Speaker, lest we forget, Mr. Speaker, only 22 months ago, we had declining economic growth that fell from 14% in 2011 to 3.7%, the lowest in some 2 decades. We had declining growth in agriculture and negative growth in industry. Rising unemployment that resulted in the formation in our history, for the first time, of the Unemployed Graduate Association. We had high fiscal deficits reaching 9.3% of GDP in 2016, fast rising public debt, which pushed the debt to GDP ratio to 73.1% at the end of 2016, fast falling CD affecting even the meager profits that street hawkers struggle to make, high interest rates killing businesses, effective return to cash and carry under NHIS as a result of government arrears, weak banking system and unstable financial systems, and lest we forget, Mr. Speaker, Ghanaian businesses, big and small, were working only to pay electricity bills or to buy diesel for the generator. We cannot forget so soon the havoc that 5 years of doom so caused to household, businesses and all up and down this great country of ours. These are just some items on the long list of things that were broken and needed to be fixed. Mr. Speaker, within 2 years of the change, below are just some of the problems we have faced. A change, Mr. Speaker, that we can all feel. Mr. Speaker, a change in the management of the economy, a change in the management of the economy from incompetence to competence, a change from macroeconomic instability to macro stability, a change from a rising debt to GDP ratio to a declining debt to GDP ratio, changing from a weak banking system to a strong, well-capitalized and better supervised banking system, a change from taxation that undermines production, a change from a predominance of sole sourcing to competitive tendering in procurement. This change has seen the Public Procurement Authority making total savings of 1.8 billion from January 2017 to October 2018. It is important to recognize, Mr. Speaker, that not a single pesewa was saved all the years under the previous government until 2017. A change, Mr. Speaker, from the manual process of clearing goods of its attendant corruption at the ports to a paperless process, a change to bring about a reduction in electricity tariffs, a change from doomsaw to reliable power. A change in the access to and cost of education, to social justice with introduction of free senior high school education, leaving, Mr. Speaker, no one behind. A change from the abolition of teacher training allowances to a restoration of teacher training allowances. A change from cash and carry in NHIS to a functioning national health insurance system where all arrears led by our colleagues from 2014 have now been cleared. A change from the abolition of nursing training allowances to a restoration.
Let us watch the language.
Of nursing training allowances.
Must be parliamentary. Order. Order, we will go on.
A change to increase the share of DACF to persons with disabilities from 2% to 3%. A change in a moribund private sector to a vibrant job-creating private sector. A change from rising graduate unemployment to reducing graduate unemployment through programs such as the 100,000 strong NAPCO Core. A change from a dying colonial railway network system that is now being re-energized. A change from a stagnant agriculture sector to a revitalized agriculture sector under the Planting for Food and Jobs program. A change from destructive galamsey activities to a regulated small-scale mining activities. A change from the opaque allocation of Ghana's oil blocks to non-performing cronies to a transparent allocation of oil blocks to investors with the capacity to work the fields. Mr. Speaker, His Excellency responded and promised Mr. Speaker, His Excellency responded and promised an innovative change to bring jobs and income to every district through one district, one factory. An innovative change to bring development to our rural areas through one village, one dam under IPEP. An innovative change to mobile payment interoperability. An innovative change to 3 development authorities to be a vehicle for accelerated development and the allocation of capital expenditure in our rural areas. An innovative change to the establishment of the Zongo Development Fund as a vehicle to focus on the development needs of Zongo communities. And an innovative change to the approach of entrepreneurship development through the establishment of a ministry and the National Entrepreneurship and Innovation Program. A major focus of the government in the last 22 months has been to clean the economic headwinds we inherited with the restoration and sustainability of macroeconomic stability as the anchor for economic growth. Fiscal policy has been underpinned by increased revenue mobilization, fiscal consolidation, and expenditure prioritization, as well as moving government policy from a focus on taxation to a focus on production. In this regard, government has implemented the following policies and measures. Mr. Speaker, we abolished excise duty on petroleum. We reduced special petroleum tax from 17.5% to 15% and further to 13%, converted from ad valorem to specific tax. In fact, it is important to note that petroleum taxes as a percentage of the total price build-up for petroleum prices has reduced, Mr. Speaker, from 40% in March 2017 to 26% today. We abolished levies imposed on KIA and churches by local authorities. We abolished the 1% special import levy. We abolished 17.5% VAT NHL on domestic airline tickets. We abolished 17.5% VAT NHL on financial services. We abolished the 17.5% VAT NHL on selected imported medicines that are not produced locally. We abolished the 5% VAT NHL on real estate sales. We abolished import duty on the importation of spare parts. We reduced National Education Scheme levy from 5% to 2%. We reduced public lighting levy from 5% to 3%. After 22 months of disciplined economic management, Mr. Speaker, the results have been quite remarkable. Economic growth increased from 3.7% in 2016 to 8.5% in 2017. Agriculture growth increased from 3% in 2016 to 8.4% in 2017. Industry growth rose from negative 0.5% in 2016 to 16.7% in 2017. The service sector grew at 4.3% in 2017 compared to 5.7% in 2016. The fiscal deficit was reduced from 9.3% of GDP in 2016 to 5.9% of GDP in 2017, the first time since 2006 that the government has met the deficit target. It is at 2.8% of GDP in June 2018, within the target of 4.5% of GDP in December 2018. Inflation, Mr. Speaker, declined from 15.4% in 2016 to 11.8% in 2017, and now stands, Mr. Speaker, in single digits at 9.5% in October 2018. The Bank of Ghana monetary policy rate saw a year-on-year reduction from 25.5% by end 2016 to 20% by end 2017, and currently stands at 17%. This is the longest 18-month reduction in the policy rate since 2001, an easing of 850 basis points. Interest rates on the 91-day Treasury bills declined from 16.8% and now stands at 13.4%. Ghana's trade position of the rest of the world has strengthened. The trade account recorded a deficit of $1.4 billion in June 2016, improved significantly to a surplus for the first time in 2 decades of $1.1 billion as of June 2017, and another surplus of $1.1 billion as of June 2018. Our gross international reserves increased from $6.2 billion in December 2016, 3.5 months of import cover, to $7.3 billion as of June 2018, 3.9 months of import cover. Ghana's debt to GDP ratio, which increased from 32%, Mr. Speaker, in 2008, when we were last in government, increased to 73.1% in 2016 in the NDC era, declined for the first time since 2007 from 73.1% of GDP in 2016 to 67.3% in June 2018. And for the first time in almost a decade, Mr. Speaker, Standard & Poor's upgraded Ghana's sovereign credit rating from B negative to B with a stable outlook in September 2018. These, Mr. Speaker, are remarkable achievements which we are determined to build on in order to improve the lives of Ghanaians. We shall not, Mr. Speaker, return to Egypt again. In preparing this budget, we undertook broad consultations with various stakeholders across the nation. Consequently, I present to this august House and to the people of our great country a budget that delivers on the hopes and expectations of Ghanaians, a budget that speaks to the needs of hardworking Ghanaians, a budget that enabled us to face the future with confidence, a budget that reflects government's commitment to building human capital through improvements in health and education, a budget that continues to deliver on job creation, a budget that provides opportunity for wealth creation, a budget, Mr. Speaker, that follows through on our promise to protect the public first, a budget that creates industry, that modernizes agriculture, that builds infrastructure, that stabilizes our banking system. Mr. Speaker, this is the budget that small businesses will be happy, a budget that enjoins our citizens, a budget, Mr. Speaker, that enjoins our citizens to uphold the Republic and to at all times fulfill their civic duties as citizens of this great nation, a budget that promotes our commitment to sustainable development goals and takes fundamental steps towards a Ghana beyond aid. This will be the first budget in Africa and second in the world after Mexico to fully integrate the SDG framework, enabling us to track our financial performance in order to ensure progress on these important targets that affect the lives of our fellow Ghanaians. Mr. Speaker, our 2018 Ajuma budget aimed to build on our 2017 Asempa budget achievements and put the country back to work to grow the economy, create jobs, and improve the lives of Ghanaians. Economic growth remains strong, and we are on track to achieve our key macroeconomic targets for 2018 and the medium term. This is progress we can all be proud of. Mr. Speaker, the Ghana Statistical Service completed the GDP rebasing exercise in September this year. As a result, our economy is 24.5% larger. This increase reflects economic activities that hitherto were not captured, e.g. natural gas production, or were captured with insufficient data, e.g. fruits, vegetables, mining, and manufacturing activities. The rebasing resulted in a number of changes in some economic indicators. The good news is that per capita GDP rose from Ghana 7,110 cedis to Ghana 8,863 cedis. On the other hand, with the expanded GDP base, the 2017 GDP growth rate of 8.5% was revised down to 8.1%, which is still the highest in recent years. We are fully aware of what happened the last time Ghana's economy were rebased. In November 2010, resulting in a 63% upward change, it gave the then managers of the economy a false sense of security, as the debt to GDP ratio was significantly reduced. They went on a borrowing spree, forgetting that rebasing also exposed how very little revenue we raised through taxation. Mr. Speaker, during the first half of 2018, real GDP grew by 5.4%, reflecting slower growth in the oil sector compared to 2017. But we are still on track to achieve our revised target of 5.6% growth this year. Much of the higher growth in the past 2 years reflects our prudent economic management and flagship programs that respond to the realities of the majority of our citizens. In addition to significant achievements in stabilizing the economy, we are on course, Mr. Speaker, to achieve our fiscal deficit target of 4.5% for the year, 3.7% in the rebase series. This would be the second consecutive year this government has achieved its fiscal deficit targets. Last year's target of 6.3% was surpassed to 5.9%. Our key economic targets for 2018 and the medium term will thus be achieved. This is progress we can all be proud of. Mr. Speaker, not only are we growing the economy, the Bank of Ghana has also done an excellent job in implementing monetary policy. This has resulted in inflation dropping to single digits, lower interest rates, and a relatively stable currency, despite recent turbulence in emerging markets and a strengthening US dollar. The financial system is critical to the functioning and development of the economy, and banks are central to our financial system. In addition to providing employment to a large segment of the population, the role of banks as a provider of credit and liquidity to the economy remains critical to the functioning of the economy. Mr. Speaker, weak macroeconomic conditions coupled with poor corporate governance and risk management in a number of banks over the past few years led to high levels of non-performing loans and abuse of depositors' funds through related parties and affiliates in breach of regulatory requirements. In addition, the lack of enforcement of the rules contributed to liquidity and solvency challenges in the banking sector. As a result, we inherited a number of weak banks and specialized deposit-taking institutions, savings and loans companies, finance houses, rural and community banks, and microfinance institutions. This eventually led to an assumption and consolidation of 7 banks with potentially adverse consequences for depositors, creditors, employers, suppliers, and other stakeholders. It was critically important that these banks be made to exit the financial system in a timely and orderly fashion to avoid contagion for the rest of the financial system. Mr. Speaker, since the assumption of office by the current administration of the Bank of Ghana, bold measures have been taken to restore the health and resilience of the banking sector and to clamp down on unlicensed deposit-taking financial houses. In addition to the 2 insolvent banks that were closed last year by the Bank of Ghana, 5 more closed in August this year for insolvency and other infractions of the law. Rescuing the situation regarding these 7 banks has so far cost some 9.9 billion Ghana cedis in monies government had not budgeted for and could surely have put in good use to fix our numerous infrastructural needs, roads, bridges, housing, etc. The government has continued to provide assurances to depositors and customers of licensed banks and specialized deposit-taking institutions through demonstrable actions that their deposits are safe. Indeed, following the creation of the Consolidated Bank Limited, a wholly owned government of Ghana and licensed by the Bank of Ghana as a universal bank, the government capitalized over 450 million Ghana cedis. In addition, government had to issue a bond with a face value of 7.6 billion to cover the gap between the deposit liabilities and the remaining good liabilities of the 5 failed banks. This singular action of government has reposed confidence in the banking system because it will ensure that no deposits of the 1.2 million depositors will be lost, and customers will continue to access their deposits without difficulty. Through government's intervention in August this year, deposits of some 11 billion have been saved, as well as some 2,661 jobs, in addition to several hundred saved in 2017. The government's action has also created a strong indigenous Ghanaian bank in place of the 5 failed banks. The government is committed to ensuring that Consolidated Bank Ghana Limited becomes a strong, customer-oriented indigenous bank, well-positioned to meet the demands of all its customers and to serve as a go-to bank for financing small and medium-sized enterprises and corporate Ghana. Mr. Speaker, generally banks have made progress in repairing their balance sheets by writing off bad loans and addressing capital needs. Banks are far advanced in executing their plans to augment their statutory capital in line with the new minimum requirement, compliance of which is expected by end December 2018. The Bank of Ghana is also working on a comprehensive action plan for cleaning up the specialized deposit-taking institutions made up of savings and loan companies, finance houses, rural and community banks, and microfinance institutions. The government will support an orderly resolution of the difficulties and will provide the much-needed funds to facilitate prompt payouts to their depositors. Mr. Speaker, the government's financial interventions in the cleanup exercise have been necessary to help mitigate the socioeconomic impacts arising out of the closure of the failed financial institutions. It is important that the cost of these interventions borne by taxpayers are recovered to the extent possible through recoveries from debtors, shareholders, and related connected parties who, through unfair means, siphon funds from the defunct banks to the detriment of depositors, employees, other stakeholders, and the economy as a whole. The Bank of Ghana has also, Mr. Speaker, set up an Office of Ethics and Internal Investigations to investigate all allegations of misconduct by Bank of Ghana staff, including any role in the collapse of the defunct banks. In addition to all these cleanups, government has also taken steps to settle all claims of DKM customers. Mr. Speaker, you would recall that DKM Diamond Microfinance Limited had its license revoked in February 2016 with considerable suffering imposed on depositors without any meaningful response from the previous government. That has significantly changed, Mr. Speaker. The official liquidator received 99,858 claims, and the validated claims amounted to 502 million Ghana cedis. I would like to inform the country that out of the 99,858 claims, 79,708, 80% have been settled and depositors have been paid. The government has set aside funds at the Bank of Ghana to pay the remaining 20% of depositors upon validation. An additional 12,612 claims have been fully provided for, but the customers have not as yet been able to show proof of deposit. This means that 90% of DKM claims from depositors have been paid or provided for. Depositors for the remaining 7,568 claims of above 10,000 Ghana cedis are yet to reach agreement with the liquidators. Mr. Speaker, let me say how pleased His Excellency the President is that in 2018 and 2017, 271,000 young Ghanaians, 90,000 in 2017-2018, and 181,000 in 2018-2019, who would not have been able to access secondary education, were able to attend because of free SHS. We cannot, Mr. Speaker, we cannot downplay how significant this is to building a future for every citizen of this land. Mr. President maintains that he will leave no one behind. Mr. Speaker, the days of an ailing national health insurance scheme are behind us. We have re-energized the scheme, which is now able to settle its bills, thereby ensuring that many more Ghanaians have access to quality health care across the country. Mr. Speaker, we have paid all arrears since 2014 that we came to meet. Mr. Speaker, for our government, support for the private sector is a top priority. Our efforts to improve the business environment were duly recognized in the 2019 World Bank Ease of Doing Business report, in which our position improved from 120 to 114 out of 190 countries. This is just a beginning as we strive to continually improve the business climate in Ghana. We can and will do much better. Mr. Speaker, government has provided strong support to stimulate the private sector. In addition to bringing down interest rates, we provided direct support to the sector through the stimulus and 1D1F programs. The 1D1F program has generated strong interest from several banks. 55 companies have been founded, with several others in the pipeline. Government's Planting for Food and Jobs program is yielding impressive results. In order to consolidate the gains achieved under the program, government 2 weeks ago operationalized the Ghana Commodity Exchange, the first electronic commodity exchange in West Africa. Going forward, there will be a ready market for farmers who produce grains such as corn and soya. Through this exchange, an estimated 200,000 skilled jobs will be provided not only in Accra, but in key agriculture production and trading centers, including Wenchi, Tamale, Sandema, which host warehouses to support the exchange. Mr. Speaker, Ghana's credibility in the international capital market is on the rise. As a testament to the prudent fiscal and monetary policies of this government, in May 2018, the Akufo Addo government successfully issued its first Eurobond with shining success. A hat trick of 3 L's we call in the industry. The largest Eurobond issuance in our country's history of $2 billion, the longest maturity period of 30 years, and the lowest pricing in Ghana's history, 8.627% for the 30-year bond. Mr. Speaker, 2018, Ghana's appeal as the preferred investment destination has grown significantly, and we have attracted global industry giants such as Volkswagen, Nissan, and Siemens to establish local assembly plants. Mr. Speaker, and Sinotrack. Mr. Speaker, our policies have improved the business environment, and the private sector has responded by increasing jobs. Based on SNIT data, the private sector added 208,624 more jobs in the first 10 months of 2018, an increase on the 197,000 former jobs registered in 2017. We have resourced Ghana Statistical Service and the Ministry of Employment and Labor Relations to develop a more robust system to track employment on a quarterly basis. Government is also doing its part on job creation. Over the period 2017 and 2018, the Ministry of Finance granted financial clearance to various agencies to recruit 88,719 Ghanaians into critical sectors of agriculture, health, and education to enable us to improve service delivery, including 20,000 in the forestry sector. In addition, the Nation Builders Corps, a 3-year transitional job opportunity for young graduates, has enrolled, Mr. Speaker, 100,000 young graduates to support the delivery of critical public services. Mr. Speaker, this is unprecedented in our nation's 50-year history. Mr. Speaker, it is a monumental achievement as it is the single largest job and skill development program in the last 50 years in our dear country. The testimonies from the beneficiaries and their families have reaffirmed government's commitment to transform our society. Mr. Speaker, in recent times, the MPP government has twice had to inherit an IMF program from our friends across the aisle, which we have successfully completed. Notwithstanding exiting the current program after successful completion, we will continue with our prudent management of the economy and buttress that with legal and institutional measures to ensure irreversibility of the gains made so far. However, as a member country in good standing, we will continue our productive policy and technical collaboration with the IMF. Mr. Speaker, Ghana looks forward with renewed confidence. This seminal 2019 budget, which comes at the midterm of President Akufo Addo's administration, aims to consolidate the gains from tough reform measures taken so far and surge boldly forward in growing our economy, especially as we successfully exit the ECF program with the IMF, our trusted advisors in the past 3 years. Under the ECF program, we jointly made some difficult decisions which have enabled us to improve our macroeconomic situation. Mr. Speaker, we would like to acknowledge the role and contribution of the IMF in our achievements in macroeconomic stabilization and growth. As a member of the IMF, Ghana will continue to engage through Article 4 consultations and other arrangements even after that. As we complete and exit the program in December 2018, we are also instituting measures to ensure irreversibility of the macroeconomic gains we have made. Consequently, we will, among other things, legislate a fiscal responsibility role to cap the fiscal deficit to no more than 5% of GDP as part of measures to promote budget credibility and fiscal sustainability. A fiscal council will also be established. We will strictly enforce the PFM Act to promote efficient and effective public financial management. We will continue with the zero bank financing arrangement of the BOG to curb fiscal dominance as part of measures to rein in on inflation. We will maximize domestic resource mobilization and increase tax revenue to GDP ratio to levels in line with our peer lower middle income countries. We will implement expenditure efficiency and rationalization measures to increase efficiency in public spending and free more fiscal space for growth-oriented and job-creating programs. We shall enforce the Public Procurement Act and ensure sole sourcing is minimized to promote competition and efficiency in public spending, thereby promoting value for money, and institute, Mr. Speaker, risk management framework to mitigate macro-fiscal risks. In view of this, a fiscal risk unit has been established at the Ministry of Finance. God has demonstrated countless times that He can use ordinary people, ordinary nations to do extraordinary things. Ghana has a history replete with extraordinary achievements nationally, regionally, internationally. These achievements were the results and culmination of right choices. A confident nation beckons, Mr. Speaker. Having set the tone for this budget, in accordance with the Public Financial Management Act, I'll proceed to provide details of government's plans for 2019, focusing on recent global macroeconomic developments and the implications for Ghana, Ghana's macroeconomic performance in 2018, and our targets for 2019 and the medium term, and sectorial performance, government's key programs and policy initiatives, and the consequent deliverables. Mr. Speaker, global economic developments and outlook. Mr. Speaker, according to the IMF's October 2018 World Economic Outlook, global growth momentum moderated in the first half of 2018 compared to the same period in 2017. This reflected greater than expected moderation of activity in some advanced economies, particularly in the Euro area and United Kingdom. Global growth is projected to be maintained at 3.7% in 2018 and 2019, same as in 2017. Growth in advanced economies is expected to increase very marginally from 2.3% in 2017 to 2.4% in 2018, largely on the back of strong growth in the US economy, which benefited from sizable fiscal stimulus. Growth in emerging markets and developing economies was steady in the first half of 2018, supported by continued stronger growth in emerging Asia, despite the moderation of activity in China. Growth in the emerging markets and developing economies is projected to remain steady at 4.7% in 2019, same as in 2018 and 2017. In sub-Saharan Africa, growth is expected to increase from 2.7% in 2017 to 3.1% in 2018 and further to 3.8% in 2019, boosted by oil exporting economies which benefited from higher oil prices. Inflation. Mr. Speaker, global inflation increased in the second quarter of 2018, largely reflecting higher energy prices. Core inflation, excluding food and energy, remains below target in most advanced economies, while in emerging markets and developed economies, core inflation has inched up in recent months. Commodity prices. Mr. Speaker, commodity prices generally continued to strengthen in the mid-quarter of 2018. Oil prices increased to about $76 a barrel in the first half of 2018, the highest since November 2014, but declined to about $71 in October 2018, following increased oil production by the major exporters. Mr. Speaker, the world market price of cocoa beans is estimated to reach $2,200 per metric ton in 2018, compared to $2,025 in 2017. Gold prices are also projected to increase from $1,293 per ounce in 2017 to an average of $1,346 per ounce in 2018, before falling slightly to $1,302 in 2019. Financial conditions. Mr. Speaker, the monetary policy normalization in the U.S. led to a stronger U.S. dollar and rising yields on U.S. treasuries, resulting in tighter financial conditions and capital flow reversals in a number of emerging markets and frontier economies, including Ghana. Despite these developments, global financial conditions remain generally supportive of growth. Domestic macroeconomic performance. Mr. Speaker, the performance of the economy for the first 9 months has been impressive. To properly assess the performance, let me first restate the macroeconomic targets set for 2018 as presented in the 2018 budget. Overall real GDP growth rate of 6.8%, 5.6% in the rebase series, non-oil growth rate of 5.4%, 5.8% in the rebase series, end period inflation of 8.9%, fiscal deficit of 4.5% of GDP, 3.7% in the rebase series. Primary surplus of 1.7% of GDP, 1.4% in the rebase series, and gross international reserves to cover not less than 3.5 months of imports of goods and services. Mr. Speaker, data as they end September 2018 shows that the economy is in good shape and we are on track to meet our targets. Real GDP grew by 5.4% using the rebase series, 6.8% in the first quarter. In the first half of 2018, compared to the annual target of 5.6%. Non-oil GDP grew by 4.6% compared to the 2018 target of 5.8%. End-year inflation rate declined from 11.8% at the end of 2017 to 9.8% at the end of September 2018, and further, Mr. Speaker, to 9.5% as at October 2018. The fiscal deficit was 3% of rebased GDP at the end of September 2018, compared to a target of 2.7%. The primary balance was a surplus of 0.5% of rebased GDP, compared to a target of 0.9% of rebased GDP for the period. The public debt, including the financial sector bailout costs, at the end of September 2018 was 57.4% of rebased GDP, excluding bailout costs. The debt was 53.9% of rebased GDP. As of September 2018, the monetary policy rate dropped from 20% at the end of 2017 to 17% at the end of October 2018. The provisional trade balance for the period recorded a surplus of 1.6 billion compared to a surplus of 777 million recorded for the same period in 2017. Gross international reserves accumulated to 6.7 billion, sufficient to cover 3.6 months of imports ahead of a 2018 target of 3.4 months. The exchange rate, which appreciated against the dollar up to May 2018, depreciated by 7.5% at the end of September 2018, largely on account of external pressures, including the strengthening of the US dollar, the US-China trade war, and the US Fed policy rate hikes. Compared to other emerging economies, Ghana has been able to weather the storm a lot better, primarily due to strong economic fundamentals. Mr. Speaker, the detailed performance in the real monetary, external, and fiscal sector of the economy is provided below. Mr. Speaker, the 2018 budget envisaged a 6.8% GDP growth rate. However, with the rebasing of the GDP, there has been the need to revise the 2018 growth projection. Thus, the overall GDP growth target has been revised to 5.6%, taking account of the base effect of the GDP rebasing and half-year performance. Non-oil GDP is projected to grow by 5.8%. Mr. Speaker, provisional estimates by the Ghana Statistical Service show that economic growth remains strong in 2018. Real GDP grew by 5.4% during the first half of 2018, then oil by 4.4% and 4.3% in the first and second quarters of 2018, respectively. Monetary aggregates and credit development. Mr. Speaker, broad money supply, including foreign currency deposit M2+, grew by